Hello and welcome back to Max Black. I have an incredible panel today to talk all about business strategy and coaching. Because believe it or not, we all need somebody to give us advice when they're further down the path to success than we are. And with that in mind, I have an incredible panel of coaches and business strategists to give us some tips on how to make it rain in our businesses. Join me in welcoming Shalondia Bell. Hi, Shalondia.
Hello, how are you?
I am great. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Next to Shalondia is Davika Strother.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Wonderful. And right beside me is Roy Johnston. How are you doing, Roy?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Great to have you here. I just have to say that the colors, we're just fabulosity is all over the room today, okay? Let me start with Roy. Roy, could you just give us some tips for brand new entrepreneurs? Because I believe that you work with brand new entrepreneurs. You're helping them make that shift. And I think for many people, that's really the hardest thing, because an employee mindset and an entrepreneurial mindset are two extremely different things. So can you give us some tips about how to make that shift from thinking like an employee to really thinking like an entrepreneur, and why that's so important?
Well, absolutely. First of all, you have to make up in your mind that you are ready to divorce an employee's mindset and inhabit that of an entrepreneur mindset. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, so many people want to go into entrepreneurship, but they're afraid. And I always define fear as you can either face everything and run, or you can face everything and rise. Mm-hmm. And so they have to make up in their mind that when faced with fear, they have to be willing to rise and soar like an eagle. And oftentimes when these individuals are faced with these obstacles, I take them to a place. What is the thing that brings you the most happiness? Mm-hmm. What is it that many people oftentimes come to you looking for? Mm-hmm. And then they say, oh, okay. And once we figure that out, then everything else is pretty much smooth sailing.
I hear you. I hear you. Once we get clear on what we love to do, that helps us to be able to build that next life in a much more powerful way. Love it.
Absolutely.
So Davika, I know that you work with some very, very talented individuals. Can you tell us a little about what you do and how you help your clients get to that next level?
Sure. I work with visual artists, and my main goal in working with them is to make sure they position their art to profit from their art. That's very important.
No starving artists here.
I do not. I reject that philosophy. No, ma'am. We do not do starving artists. And so what I help them to realize is you do not have to be a hobby artist. I feel that art is a business, and I always say you should be minding your business. And when you mind your business, you start implementing strategies to set your business up for success. So that's what I help artists to do.
I love that, because what I hear you saying is that, you really have set this boundary that we're not going to think about this in a way that it's a hobby. Correct. We're going to say from the very beginning that this is a business, and we're going to treat it as such.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And I think that goes to your point here about, when you're thinking about, how to make sure that businesses are successful. What would you have some tips around how to do that for people that are starting and people that are really looking to rise?
Access a coach. I would say access a coach, because when you're first starting out in business, there are a lot of things you would not know. Yeah. Especially if you're transitioning from an employee to an entrepreneur mindset, there are a lot of things you would not know. Yeah. And I wished I would have done it in the very beginning of my business as I transitioned, because there are a lot of things that I could have been way further ahead in, but because I did not, the struggle was harder. Yeah. So as I began to seek coach for accountability, for support and guidance, that made my journey a whole lot better.
Absolutely. And to ask you another question to follow up on that, Shalondia, I know that you help people with their image, right? Yes. So can you talk with us a little bit about how important first impressions are with entrepreneurs? I think sometimes people think that it's almost vain to put a lot of attention in how they show up in the world and their appearance. But you believe that it's very important to business success, right? If so, can you tell us why?
Sure. Basically, when people see you in your first impression, they have 7 seconds. 7 seconds.
7 seconds.
7 seconds.
Ooh, Jesus.
They judge you in 7 seconds. Yes. So when you show up as your best self, you better show up as your best self because they have 7 seconds to judge you. And 55% of that impression is how you look.
Wow.
It's how you look, and a lot of people do not know that. But when you show up, you really need to show up as your best self.
That is powerful. That's something to know. And you know, when I'm thinking about that, Davika, that visual beauty is also what you work with your clients. They are artists. Yes. What do you think it does for us just as human beings to be surrounded by beauty? What does that add to our lives?
I read an article that explained when you look at a beautiful piece of art, your serotonin is just shooting through the roof. And so beauty and being surrounded by it is just important. And I teach artists to know that your art, the world needs it. I know that in the 2020 year, a report said that online art sales doubled to the tune of $12.4 billion, and that's during a pandemic. And so people need art to make themselves feel better. And so I teach them to know that the world needs your art. Beauty is so important, whether it's in the art medium or how you show up and you're being judged. Beauty is just something that humans, we look to and we want it. So it's important.
I completely agree.
And to feed off of what was said about image consulting, part of my program, I collaborated with an image consultant. Simply because when an individual say, I want to become an entrepreneur, they forget that aspect of image. And the importance of image is you have to be a representation of the service or product that you are offering. And if you're looking this way and your product is makeup, that's going to be in question.
Yeah.
And so I collaborate because I know my lane.
You're like, and that ain't it.
Right, and that's not it. So I collaborated with the image consultant to come in and teach that aspect of image consulting.
That is very powerful and very smart for you in terms of the collaboration idea. Davika, do you have any aspects of your business in which you collaborate, or how do you make sure that you are maximizing the way that your artist clients are able to really expand what they do to the world? I know you have your own magazine, right?
I do. And because I pay attention to the art market and know that online sales are going through the roof, I make sure that they are set up to pay attention to the shift that's going on in the art market. So if you know that online is where people are consuming right now because of the pandemic, then are you putting your art in front of an audience that's going to consume art digitally? And so I make sure one of the things I do is I write a feature for them in my magazine because that's got a digital presence. And also I just teach them to make sure you pay attention to what's going on as a whole and collaborate. You might be a photographer, but pay attention to the fact that in September, it's New York Fashion Week. So there's going to be fashion designers that you can collaborate with. Of course, a fashion designer needs somebody to take photos of their work and their tailoring. So I teach them to make sure you're paying attention, not just to your niche, but to the whole industry at large.
I love it. And as we wrap up really quick, can you give us a few tips, Yolandia? Because while you're here, Miss Image Consultant, I'm going to try to get a free consultation. Okay. So can you give us a few tips about how people can sort of make sure that they are wearing, for example, the right colors? Because just when I'm thinking about this panel, it just lifts my mood to see all these beautiful colors. You know, can you give us some tips about how to make sure that we show up looking in colors that make us look the best that we can?
Yes. You basically need to get with someone so you can have a color analysis done. Because the best.
Would you happen to do that?
I sure do.
Okay, just making
sure. Because what happens is that when you get with someone to give you a color analysis, they will know how to match your melatonin, with your undertones. So the best colors is determined by your undertone. not by the color of your hair, not by the color of your eyes, but by your undertone. And so that's what we have to realize, even when preparing for your makeup. It's all depending on your undertone.
I love it. I learned something new today. It's all about the undertone.
Yes, yes.
Well, thank you so much, ladies and gents. It was such a wonderful conversation to understand everything from image to going out there and having the right mindset. This is what it takes to build a powerful and successful business. Thanks for joining us today on Max Black.